Hey, what's up, y'all? So today I'm going to talk about what new investors should focus on in your first 90 days in real estate. So you made a decision you want to get into real estate, and now you're just trying to figure out what you should do next. A lot of times when there isn't a lot of clarity, it just causes confusion, and then nothing happens. So I just wanted to give you guys like a little blueprint, just only three, not small, but three important things to do in order to get going in real estate. So I'm gonna jump right into it. Number one is just pick your niche. So many different things you can do in real estate. You could be wholesaler, you could do rehabs, you could do rental properties, Airbnb, all these different things. And I'm only talking about the residential side, not even getting into the commercial side. You should take your first 30 days and just start there. Like really dig into each individual thing and figure out what works best for you. Because a lot of times someone wants to get into rehabbing or something. It's just like, okay, I've seen this on TV, looks like it will be fun or something to do. And this is the niche I want to pick because of that reason. But I would say really look at your particular situation, your personal situation, and figure out if that's the best thing for you. So if, let's say, for example, you're like, okay, I don't have any money, and that's fine. You can still, work in rehabbing without that by getting somebody who does have some money. But let's just say you're like, hey, I don't have any money and I need to make money in the next 30 to 60 days, then I would suggest something else, like maybe wholesaling, where you're able to find a property and make money without needing to go through the process of renovating the property. So again, I just think that take time to look at each individual niche and figure out exactly what would work best for your personal situation. I think it's a very important decision, and I don't think that it's something that you should necessarily rush through. Make sure that what you want to commit to is what's best for you, so that way you want to stay committed. Now, because I renovate properties, I'm going to assume that, for the next two and three, for the second and third step, that renovating properties is something you want to do, and fixing and flipping, or even if you want to fix it up and then rent it out or what have you. So the second thing is once you go into that niche, now you're into that niche of renovating properties, that comes with its own set of steps. So there are different parts of that. There's finding a property, there's fixing a property, finding contractors, finding lenders. So all these other different steps that go into that part of the process as well. And I would give the same advice. It's like, it can be overwhelming to try to learn all that stuff at one time because it's a lot. And you don't want to create a situation where you just feel hopeless or you feel like it's just too much to take in, and so you do nothing. So I would say, there are three main things that I feel like you should focus on in order to kind of feel like, okay, I'm ready. Number one, I would say financing. And the reason why I say financing is the most important because that's where most people just stop anyway. So it's like you can figure out the other two, but if you haven't figured out the financing portion of it, a lot of times it just feels like, where can you go from there? So there's several ways to finance. Say you have good money, good credit, or decent credit at least, you could probably go right to a hard money lender on your own and use a hard money lender to fund a deal. I have another video on hard money where I talk in depth about that, so I won't, do that again here for you guys. If you don't have any money, but you're interested in learning like how I started, which is more so how to manage projects, then I suggest that, you guys work to find somebody who has money that they're willing to invest in you and go that route and partner with them 50-50, split the profit. Have a video on that too. So make sure you watch it because it's a lot more in depth than what I will do here, right? So number one is lining up the financing. Number one kind of leads into number two because once you line up the financing and you realize and learn what you're able to afford, then you're able to kind of figure out where you want to invest at, So you could look for properties, but until you really know okay, I have a lender who's willing to fund this amount, or with the money that I currently have, I am able to afford to pay, $1,500 a month or $1,000 a month on this investment property. And so, that puts me in this neighborhood and that neighborhood. So that's another reason why I say look at financing first. So you next want to decide kind of like where you want to invest. You pick out a few neighborhoods. I always suggest neighborhoods that are a bit more stable versus like up and coming neighborhoods, just because when you're looking at, especially like fix and flipping, you're looking at getting in and out of a property, and you want to make sure that it's a neighborhood that's already stable and not one that's more like up and coming. If you do want to do buy and hold, then you're probably a little more open to making an investment in a neighborhood that you feel like has potential and they're working towards that neighborhood becoming somewhere better to live at. But again, either one of those works. But what I was saying is that you want to find a neighborhood or a place where you want to be at, and you want to start to look at that neighborhood, look at like the properties that have sold, look at what they sell for, what you can buy them for, the renovations that most other investors are doing to those properties. I would just say become comfortable with that area. Ideally, you want to become a specialist or like an expert in a few particular areas where as soon as you see something, you know if it's a deal. And that's important because a lot of times with new investors, you'll hesitate. A good deal will pop up, and if you're like, oh, if it was this good, then why did nobody else get it? But when you are an expert in an area, you know a good deal when you see it. You know when the price is right. So take time to learn areas, become an expert in those particular areas. And the third thing is contractor. Begin to find and speak with contractors, build your team, so that when you do find a property that you're interested in, or when you have financing lined up, you have somebody who can do the work. That's another thing a lot of people get hung up on. They may have money, they may have good credit, they may even have an idea of a property or an area that they want to invest in, but they just don't feel like they have anybody who can do the work. And I mean, that is a valid reason to not move forward, because a contractor can make or break the project. But a good one can also take you leaps and bounds, teach you things that you don't know, and help tremendously. So on the third step, we want to begin to build our list of contractors, find good contractors. I have video on that where I talk more about how to find good contractors and how to work with them. So make sure you guys check that out. Like I said, I won't just dive too deep into that, but just overall, you want to make sure that you have good people who do good work in order to do your renovations, and that will make you feel a lot better. All these are important because if you don't feel like you can do it, or any one of these three are missing, like maybe you feel like you have the money, but you have a contractor, but you can't find a good property, you're not going to move forward, or you have a good contractor, maybe you have a property, but you don't have the money, then you're still going to feel like you can't move forward. So I think that in those first 3 months, first gaining the financing will give you a lot of confidence. That's why I start there. It's like once you feel like you have access to money, you feel a lot more comfortable going out, spending your time, taking time to look at properties. And then once you have a property, you feel more confident when you're talking with contractors, or at least the area that you want to work in. Maybe you don't have a property, but you know the areas you want to work in. You kind of know what you're going to do, and that way, in my opinion, that kind of helps you also with initially when you're building that list of contractors. You can kind of build it based on that. Like if you are working in neighborhoods where it's more pricey, the work is expected to be better, and so you need contractors that kind of fulfill that niche. If you're working in areas that maybe a first-time home buyer areas, like a entry point where you are getting people who are just buying their first property, and it's like those people require a different level of a contractor. And so that's why all of these things kind of tie in, all are important. But I think if you work one at a time, like I said, start with finance and then move out from there, then it makes the process a lot more digestible. And the third step would be to then focus in on like the other things that come with renovating a property. When you're talking about like dealing with like scope of works, and you're dealing with like draw inspections, and even something as simple as, or not simple, but even something like understanding like the order of operations, like from the time that you purchase a property to the time that the renovation is completed. What does that look like? You're doing demo, you're doing framing, you're doing the systems. And that's something that I didn't know going into it. And it probably would have saved me from the situation I went through on my first property with the contractor that went bad. If I would have known that, you know, things should be done in this order, because the guy would come in and he would like put a sink in, maybe put one window in, hang a door, you know, like do all these little miscellaneous things and then ask for money. And I'm like, here, you know, because you did this. But if had I known that there was a particular way that things should have been done, it would have made it so I could recognize when things weren't done correct, you know. But instead of starting at that step where you're focusing on like learning more about construction and all of that stuff, I think that it can feel overwhelming, because I'll be real with y'all, like I've been doing this since 2009. Well, that first property happened even before that. I want to say like 2005, you know, lost for that. And then it was like a few years before I was able to like rebuild and buy another property. But even now for me, there's still things that come up at times where it's like, oh, you know, like you're always learning is what I'm saying. So don't feel like you have to know everything about contracting in order to, you know, do your first property. I look at like contracting or you know, being an investor, like being a general contractor, meaning like you're able to hire subcontractors and manage the project yourself, as like a life skill. You know, it's not like a hustle. It's something that you will always be able to use. You'll always be able to make money from. So expect it to take some time for you to like fully get there. So don't focus on that going into it. Focus on the other things, and then, you know, that will come over time. But that last month, then I feel like, you know, you can dig into some of those other things, like learning more about contracting. Once you knock out those first two steps, then let the third step be that. If you guys want to learn more about real estate, I have a free group where you guys can come in, participate. I have some resources there for you to check out. Look at the link in my bio, and I will catch you guys next week. Oh, hold on. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Take care.